My computer's a bit slow though, so hopefully, it
Yeah.
says we are live. So,
Yeah.
hello everybody. I am Ness Jones, and with me today we have Lisa Spector from My Zen Pet. Welcome, Lisa. Thank you so much for joining us. It's a pleasure to have you here. You are a pet calming maestro, and it's 5 p.m. in America.
It's 5 p.m. in California. Ness, thank you so much for inviting me to speak to your group on separation anxiety. And I just love this topic. So fantastic. Happy to be
It's
here.
It's an awesome topic. Let me know if you are watching, please. If you want to join the StreamYard, then I'll be able to read who is leaving comments. Otherwise, I'll just keep jumping in and out of Facebook. This is also streaming to YouTube. So hello, anybody watching there. Please let me know if you're watching. And if you're hopefully the people that are watching will have a little doggy with them and they can listen to you play some music later.
Great. I'm going to give you one warning though. So my housemates might be coming home while we're talking, and they have three dogs, and you might hear them barking when they come home. So anyone with a
That's
dog,
all
just be warned that might be coming up.
Yeah, no worries, no worries. Doesn't look like anybody is watching us now. I'm just going to jump in and make sure we are live. I always bothers me when I do this because until I actually see the
Right, it does say
stream,
live though. Yeah.
yeah, I know. I just don't trust. Just don't trust it sometimes. Just bear with me.
Maybe that's
Right?
how dogs feel about when they first get adopted. Like, it looks good, sounds good, just don't quite trust it. Yeah, let's check it out
Yeah,
and
yeah,
see. Yeah.
yeah, for sure. So give us a little bit about your background before we get started. So I think would be lovely to hear.
Sure. So I have been a dog lover for many, many, many years, like all of us. And I have done volunteer work in the dog world. I volunteered in shelters, and then I became a volunteer puppy raiser for guide dogs for the blind out in California. And I raised a puppy to be a guide dog. And that's kind of what started all of this. This is way back in 2003. I
Wow.
am a professional pianist. I'm a Juilliard graduate. I'd been playing concerts. I had a music school. My focus was all on music. But I always had a dog by my side, even growing up. Our family Cocker Spaniel was always gravitating to the piano when I was playing. So I was raising a guide dog puppy, and at the time that I owned a music school, and I had children from age 4 to adults to 88, and the 4-year-olds, the group of 4-year-olds were just lively and fun, and they come in screaming and yelling and happy, and I needed to get them focused and calm quickly. So I started researching, is there any kind of music that would help the kids, the human kids, settle down quickly? And I did a lot of research, and I found a good prescription of classical music that worked. And I'm like, this is so cool. 30 seconds flat, the right Mozart works for them. And I look over at my 4-month-old rambunctious yellow lab, and he is snoozing in no time. And I'm like, kid's great, but I am onto something with this dog. And I wonder what research has been done, what research there still is to do. And that's how it all started my career as a pet calming maestro way back in 2003.
Wow, that's incredible. And you are from My Zen Pet. It's your company now, is it?
That is my current company. I started with a different company with Through a Dog's Ear. I left
Yeah.
that company in 2017, but proud to say that I am on 16 albums of theirs. I helped create the
Wow.
music in shelters program. I got the music into 1,500 shelters worldwide, increasing adoption rates, including several in Australia. I was featured on ABC Australia at one point, and so very proud of the work I did there. But I am on my own, working with new recordings and a club and a podcast and all sorts of different things now.
Yeah. That's brilliant. So obviously this is a group for dogs with separation anxiety, and I am 100% sure a lot of people in this group will have tried music therapy, or to help their dogs be calmer when they leave, and possibly failed the way they've implemented it, or maybe the type of music they've done. Obviously, you're well over all over the subject. So maybe
Right,
you could
right.
talk us through a little bit about that.
Sure. Well, if your group, if your followers have been trying music, kudos to them because they're ahead of everybody else. This is just that they would think of that. So I'm going to give you the range of people who are somewhat maybe aware of their auditory of their dog's auditory environment, and then into, the real sound aware and creating a sound dog friendly home. People say to me all the time two things. Oh, I don't, when I leave, I put the TV on for my dog. So
Yeah,
your following doesn't do that, but I'm just going to talk about that for a
some of
second.
them do. Yeah.
So you have no control over what comes on the TV. There might be gunshots, there might be construction, fireworks, yelling, shouting, and you name it. You have no control of what comes out of that TV. And dogs hear, so their hertz range is twice, a little more than twice of ours. So ours is, let's say we're a middle-aged person or younger, 20 hertz. Dogs is 45, generally, if they have their hearing, is 45 hertz. Cats are twice that. So what that means is that dogs hear the combination of a bigger spectrum of sound. They hear lower frequencies and oftentimes higher pitches, and they hear further distances. So I don't know about you, but at my age, if I were home all day with the TV on, I would go bonkers, and that would
Yeah,
cause
I would
so
too.
much anxiety. I'd have prefer to have nothing on. Then there's the people who the next level up is people who say, "Oh, I play classical music because there's research that shows classical music." Well, that's a great start. So classical music is an enormously broad term. So if you play classical music, let's say it's an app, or let's say it's even Beethoven or Mozart symphonies, you again have no controls because you might have a 100-piece orchestra, you might have loud trumpet calls, you might have cannons coming off. It's Tchaikovsky's 1812 overture. So you don't have the control that you would as if you played music that's based on research that is good for your dog. So
Just a
what
point on that. Can I just interrupt?
Yeah.
I was doing some volunteer work at a shelter, and there was the part of the shelter where people could go and see the dogs, and there was the other part which you weren't allowed to go into because they were rehab dogs or whatever. And they used to play classical music in there, but it was just off a classical music radio station. And honestly, some of the stuff that it was full on opera, but it was not good opera, like it was
Right.
just, I was just
And
so
operas.
like, oh my God, it's terrible for me to listen to. Imagine being a dog. Yeah.
Yeah. And
So
opera, then it includes voice, and then it might build an association of a voice they were traumatized by. I mean, it's just, there's so many variables. Back in the day when I started this in 2003, we didn't have apps. I listened to classical music all the time on streaming and on my local station app. But in those days, it was classical station that if you listened to a station, everyone heard the same piece at the same time. And I can tell you at 3 in the afternoon, that classical station was putting on classical music to charge your nervous system, not to discharge your nervous system, which is what you want to do if you want a calm dog. So
right.
classical music is great, but it's an enormously, I mean, that's where the challenge lies. It's when people say I played classical, that is just like saying I live in the United States. It's an enormously broad term. I mean, there's so many ranges of where you live and the change of everything. So it's a start, but let's just say that we start there. Then you go to music that's based on research. So what I mean by that is there has been, when I started in 2003, there was only one research study. It was by Deborah Wells, an Irish behaviorist, and she researched a variety of music compared to classical music, compared to a control group in the shelter environment. Not surprising to me at all that the classical music she played produced calming results. But again, classical is so broad. Since then, there have probably been 10 to 20 studies, and they vary a lot. But the one commonality of all of them is that the frequency, meaning the bass range, this is a bass lower frequency of the piano, is what calms the canine nervous system and relieves anxiety issues. So I play music that's based on lower frequencies, is a slow, steady tempo, no surprises. Dynamics are soft. I'll take a Chopin prelude that is fortissimo, which is really loud, but it's a slow tempo, and I'll change the dynamics to play it soft. I don't think Chopin will mind. He loved dogs. So that's the commonality. And when you are playing music that's specifically designed for dogs, that's why you have so much more control over it. So if we could talk a little bit about the commonality of lower frequencies and higher frequencies and how we just naturally do them with our dogs. If you're saying good night to your dog and it's just, it's quiet, lights out, it's like, good girl, good boy, you're naturally, without even thinking about it, your voice is going to drop. You're going to go into long, legato, smooth sounds with good girl. You don't think about it, you just do that. If your dog is outside and about to cross the street and you see a car coming, the last thing you're going to do is say, Fido, here. You're going to say, Fido, here. You're going to use short, high-pitched, staccato, in music terms, short sounds. That's because that charges their nervous system. That's going to get their attention. That's why whistles work. It's short, and staccato. It's going to get their attention coming to you. That's what I do with music. I take out all the staccato, short, high pitches, and I do low frequency based, not all low frequency, but I would start with that long legato lines. I just put it to piano music.
Sure. So I think people think when they do introduce music that maybe they just put the music on and walk out the door, but it shouldn't be like that, should it?
Exactly. And this is your area of expertise because music, I really want your viewers, your listeners to understand that music is a thing. It's just an invisible thing, but it's just as important a thing. Dogs are always looking for patterns and listening for patterns. And I will tell you, we know it's their nose, then their hearing, and then their visual. So the hearing is really, really important. So they're looking for patterns. So if you're always picking up your car keys, putting on the music, putting on your shoes, and you're out the door, that becomes a departure cue. Just as important as picking up your keys. It's just invisible to you, but it's really important to your dog. So I'll let you talk about, Ness, a little bit about how you would advise them through your separation anxiety, skills to make sure that's not a departure cue.
Well, I think with music in particular, I mean, you came on our podcast and we're talking about that. So if anybody wants to dig into that episode, Tales from the Doghouse, Separation Anxiety Explained, that is an excellent edition with Lisa, where she was our special guest talking about music. But essentially, you want to build up that beautiful association with, the dog hears the music, they feel calm, but you do that outside of your departures first.
Exactly. So it's why veterinarians prescribe the music. It's a prescription, really. It's a prescriptive auditory tool. So they prescribe it to be played daily, like 30 minutes a day. The music I create now is great for both ends of the leash. It's very calming for both ends of the leash. So that's why veterinarians prescribe. It doesn't have to be exactly the same time, but dogs are always looking for patterns. So they know, okay, like Gina gets a frozen banana in her bone every night. It's like, okay, she gets that, and then we get the music. She always knows that's coming next. So
it's a frozen banana.
I stuff every morning. I stuff a banana and a marrow bone, half a banana and a marrow bone, as green as possible, so it doesn't have much sugar, as green as possible. And then it's been fabulous for her teeth. She's 13, and her teeth are like a 4-year-old. So
oh wow!
Yeah, and so she knows that's part of the ritual. We do that. We do some training. The music comes on, and it's time for her to go to her dog bed. Yeah. So, and dogs begin an association of, oh, my person is with me. all is good with the world, so that they're listening to this when you're gone and they have that emotional response of all is good with the world. This is an association I feel with my person. So it can be something to add to your toolbox with dogs that have separation anxiety.
Sure, sure. If anyone's listening, watching, please ask us any questions. Ask Lisa some questions as we go along, because I'm sure she would love to answer them. Say hello. Say if you're watching with your dog. What else do people need to consider, Lisa?
Volume.
Oh, yeah.
Volume is one of the most important things. So, like I was saying earlier, with the dog's hearing range and their hertz range being so much more than ours, what so many people make the mistake. So, I am so proud that my recordings I've made for dogs are heard in over 1,500 shelters. And I can walk into one of those shelters, and if the volume is too high, it drives me bonkers. So I can only imagine what it does for the dogs. This music that is based on research is not about masking sounds. It's about calming the canine nervous system. So what volume is that? So think of your hearing, and if you were listening to this music, let's say you're alone because your audience, they have dogs with separation anxiety. So you're listening to this music alone yourself. If you're listening for 3, 4 hours, 8 hours, whatever it is, what volume would be comfortable for you? And then just turn it down
Mm.
a little bit for that. So it's not about playing it too loud. I get anxious hearing my music that's too loud. It's really not healthy. So you want just a really gentle volume. And dogs don't need, I'm just very blessed. My 13-year-old has really good hearing. I could say her name this softly and she'd hear me. So, it gives me an idea of how loud or how soft really I should play the music.
Yeah, that's interesting. And especially if it's on for hours and hours and hours. I mean, you can
Right.
tolerate perhaps for 5, 10 minutes, even half an hour.
Exactly.
Then after an hour, 2 hours, it just becomes grating, doesn't it?
Yeah, to me it does. So I can only imagine what it does to my dog. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So when you create your music for My Zen Pet, it's music that you've taken and reframed, would you say, like a lower frequency, all that sort of stuff? Or
A little bit, not as much as I used to with Through a Dog's Ear, because more recent research has been done that shows that less arranged classical music helps. But again, we get to that broad term of classical music. So what I do is I take the composer's works. I'm Juilliard trained. I play classical music. I don't play reggae or anything else. But that, luckily for me, that's the music that's been proven over and over to help dogs. So, but I will change the dynamics. I'll change so it's softer. I'll change the speed. I'll make it really, really steady beat, or I choose music that's really, really steady. And because I specialize in playing music for left hand only, and left hand only is lower frequencies, which calms the canine nervous system, I have rearranged some things for left hand only. I've had music written for me to play for dogs, or really for your dogs, that has more lower frequencies in it. I don't do all left hand, but my left hand, so just briefly, 5 years ago, I injured my right hand so severely in a fall. I had 7 fractures, 4 surgeries, alternative therapies, and I was told I would never play again with my right hand. 5 years later, I'm happy to report I am playing full concerts with 2 hands. But because of that experience, when my right hand was still in a cast, I was playing music for left hand only, remembering all the research I'd read about and participated in about music for dogs, thinking, well, my left hand can play music for dogs because it's playing lower frequencies. So some of it's rearranged by me, some of it's rearranged by other people. I now say I pretty much curate the right prescription of classical music that is conducive to calming the canine nervous system and relieving anxiety issues.
so Steve is watching on YouTube and asks, I know the music was played for my dog and his siblings by the breeder. Excellent.
Yeah.
As a pre-8-week-old. I'm wondering if I should attempt to find out what that was. Yeah, it would be really interesting, I think, to know that. I'm willing to try anything.
Yeah. Yeah. The other thing, when you said, like, what should people pay attention with music? Don't play electronic music. People know that the pet business is a booming, big, growing business, and they record music on digital pianos. It's for dogs. It doesn't work. So make sure you're listening to music that's on an acoustic piano. This happens to be a very large 9-foot Steinway. Does it help? Doesn't hurt.
No. And Roxanne says, I'm realizing I didn't research enough of trying to use classical music to help my dog. I thought you just tuned to a classical music station and that was enough. And not surprising it hasn't worked. Now I know why. I look forward to this approach. Thank you very much. And yeah, don't forget, Roxanne, you need to build the association first. So you don't want to just put it on and walk out the door. You want to build that lovely association, which leads me to a question, Lisa. You mentioned, I mean, obviously we're trying to calm the canine nervous system. How does that actually work? How does it calm the canine nervous system?
Okay, I just need to find you again. So I just realized I can't add it. Can I add something to the chat?
You'd I don't know. I don't know what it looks
yeah,
like.
Okay, we'll send it out. We'll add it later. So I was going to add a link to streaming. If you go to lisaspector.hearnow, HEARNOW.com, you'll find my music on streaming.
Lisa Spector. Sorry, what is it? Lisa Spector?
lisaspector.hearnow.com. You know what? An easier way, just go to myzenpet.com and you'll see it on the homepage. That would be easier.
Yeah, that would be easy. MyZenPet.
Yeah, you'll see a link to streaming where people can listen for free on all streaming platforms. So I'm so sorry, Ness. Can you repeat that question?
Before I do, we might just address Steve's thing. Have they done brain tests, for example, of what music has what effect on the dog's brain waves?
So not that I know of, but I will tell you, this is a growing field. Like this is, there was almost nothing when I started, and now there's quite a bit because there's a lot more awareness about this with trainers and everyone. So, and with the whole fear-free movement too, and that's the music I recorded was a huge part of that. So, I don't think it's done. I'm going to just share with your viewers. I don't say this publicly very much, but here's a research study concept I've talked to with Dr. Susan Wagner, who was the veterinary neurologist who ran the original research study I was involved with. And although she's a veterinary neurologist, she's very much into sound healing and energy work. And we both have this idea of, because we just believe that this of the results, what would be? Is it different if you just use you pull a recording from anywhere that was recorded for any purpose of Mozart that has the things, that slow tempo, some lower frequencies, all the things. Is that any different than someone who's recording it specially for dogs? And I don't know. That's new. So I will tell you, when I record, this is my rest in peace dog, Sanchez, my lab, my 13-year-old lab, black lab, is here by the piano. I have pictures on the piano. My heart space is connected to dogs when I record this. And I believe it makes a difference. Yeah. But that's anecdotal. It hasn't been researched yet.
So my question was, we're talking about the canine nervous system. How does it actually, do we know the science behind how it calms the canine nervous system?
Yeah. So some of these tests have included cortisol tests and watching the dogs to see, do they stop panting, watching their behavior, do they lay down, do they stop barking, all the things that we know are stress.
Right.
The challenge with it, though, with research on this topic, is that sometimes those tests cause the anxiety.
Oh.
How does that work? So if you put, brain waves, I don't know how that's measured, but how do you do that so it doesn't cause anxiety to the dog? So how do we get their natural state and still test it? And so much of this testing has been in the shelter environment where we know, so many dogs are stressed.
Yeah. Well, yes, they're already stressed. So yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I know people do jump onto things like YouTube, and there'll be, some sort of flowy, almost, spiritual kind of
new age music.
New age relaxation music. Is that appropriate or not really?
It's a start. I wouldn't stop there though. So the reason I say it's a start because either people are aware that their sound environment is really important, but most, not all of it, but a lot of it is electronic. That's what I was saying before. It's not acoustic. It's not based on research. It's spa music. So it's like,
Yeah.
oh, this will work. This is relaxing for me. It's not been tested. So
Right.
you have 2.0 pet parents, right? So those people are like, I would encourage them to go the extra mile and really play music that's based on research.
Yeah. Yeah.
And yet,
Speaking.
I will also tell you, there is no, I am not here to say my music works on every dog. It's only my music. That's like, don't listen to anyone that says that. Every dog is different. So pay attention to your dog. How do they respond? Do they go towards the source of the sound? Do they go towards the speaker? Do they go away? Do they leave the room? Now, it's not a really fair test because we know the reason we love dogs so much is because they love us so much. So you might have a household where you're in one room, your husband's yelling at the football game on the TV box in the other room, your teenager's playing heavy metal in the other, and your dog loves all the people and they might put themselves in the middle of the cacophony of sound. So it's not always a fair test. So I'll give you an example of that. I talked a lot today about higher frequencies and lower frequencies. Well, a high frequency instrument is something like flute or violin. Beautiful, beautiful instruments, but it's high frequencies which can charge your dog's nervous system. Not uncommon at all for dogs to bark at oboe sounds or flute sounds. They're
Yeah.
just
I
can be
play the
piercing.
oboe. I wouldn't want to
Right.
inflict an oboe on them.
Yeah. This when he was a puppy, I rehearsed with one of the world's best flutists, and he just barked and barked and barked. So, I so you're playing the high, let's say you're a violinist, you're playing the high frequency and you'll say, "But Lisa, I play violin and my dog's always by my side," because you're attached to your instrument. You can't separate that. So it'd be a fairer test if it's on the stereo or is music coming out of the speakers so that you're not attached to that. But observe your dog, see if I'm sure a lot of your followers have cameras in their households because they're watching the dog's behavior. If you play music, watch. What do they do? Do they leave the room? Do they go towards the source of the sound and so forth?
Roxanne asks, could you give more specifics on what you've observed, or are there any video clips of seeing a dog become more calm? That's a good
Yeah.
question.
Yeah, very good question. So lots of video clips. Follow my Instagram, my_zen_pet. More videos to come, a few on my website. Specific examples are, I'm going to tell you the truth, and it's so extreme, you're going to think I'm lying. I kid you not. My music helped several. Is anyone here old enough to remember the story of the Michael Vick dogs? So the fighting ring dogs that belonged to Michael Vick when he was arrested. Several of those dogs listened to my music, and it was an enormous part of their recovery
Oh, wow.
because it helped not only calm them. I'll never forget the story of Little Red. Her person, Susan, messaged me, and she was just like crying. She said, for the first time, Little Red opened her body to me and let me rub her tummy.
Oh,
These are dogs who didn't trust anyone. They were in horrendous situations. So that's an extreme anxiety. I'll tell you a personal thing from my situation. My rest in peace dog, Sanchez, lived till he was 14. When he was about 9, something was wrong with his neck, and it turned out he was diagnosed with a slip disc. And acupuncture helped him. He lived 5 more years. He was great. But he had to go get an x-ray. And I was like, he was 9. I was like, I didn't want to put him under. And I said, I think if I send him in with my music, can you just, at those days, it was like, can you take my phone and play this music? And they looked at me like I was crazy. Because it wasn't my holistic vet doesn't have x-rays, so I had to go to a different vet. And they're like, we'll try it, but that's not gonna work. They come out like, he's good, we got the x-ray. So the x-ray like kept him still on his back while he didn't need to be put under while he got his
Wow,
X-ray.
that's
Like, so
excellent.
I
Yeah,
know. So the
crazy.
littlest things, when Gina was young, she's a lab, she ate something and she had to be in ER overnight. And the music it not only kept her calm and me calm, it kept all the dogs in the ER unit calm. Yeah.
Touching on, I know you had to give them your phone to go in there, but I remember when you were on the podcast, you were talking about the vehicle of the music. So, what it's being played through can also make a difference for the dog.
The sound quality can definitely make a difference. And now it's so easy. Like you just get a little Bluetooth to
Yeah,
pair with your phone. I mean, it's just so easy these days.
yeah. Steve says, does it matter that the music is just familiar to them? For example, I play talk radio a lot. Is there any reason why talk radio wouldn't relax them if I was gone?
That's a really good question, and I don't know the answer because I don't know your dog. So it might. It might because he or she might be building an association of, well, that means my person's with me. So I don't know. So you'd have to like have a camera on and observe your dog and then try the music and see is there any difference. So kind of experiment with that. So it could. There is research very recent. I think it just came out a couple weeks ago that shows that music for dogs compared to talking, like, audible books, music is much more conducive to calming them. But it might be different because you're talking about something with talk radio that's paired with you. However, again, like TV, you have no control over what comes on that talk radio station when you're gone. So I'd be a little cautious of that myself.
So he follows that with, is it actually music? Can it be any sound? Talk, rain waves. Sorry, rain, space waves.
Right, right, right. Um, so sound has always been a part of all of these testing. So sound meaning usually it's TV. So usually people test, the researchers test music with a control group with no sound, with TV sounds. I don't know if they've tested rain. I don't know the answer, but I would imagine you could again pair rain with if you want to listen to rain every night prescriptively with your dog, that's fine. I think you might enjoy the music a little more because it is for both ends of the leash, but it's up to you to kind of test it and see how your dog responds.
Yeah, sure. And guys, I think are you able to play us a little track there, Lisa? And maybe people can let us know if they're watching with their dogs.
Sure.
And hopefully, let's do a little experiment and see if everybody's dog's more relaxed once you start playing.
Sure. So I am going to play. This is my own arrangement of French piece, Massenet melody. It's very beautiful. So if you watching me, you can see it's my left hand only. It's lower frequencies. I don't think it ever gets any higher than here. And it's a slow tempo. It's a steady tempo. There's no surprises and dynamics. It's fairly soft. So I am going to I'm going to take off my headsets for this. And let me just check. Sound is okay. Okay,
Yeah,
so I'm going to take
sounds
off
good
the
my end
headsets.
anyway.
Okay, great. I'm going to take off the headsets. It's about 3 minutes or so. Notice not only your dog's response, but your response. Do you start to breathe a little slower? Do you start to get a little more zen because of it? So notice both of your responses. So I heard some pretty loud snores from Gina, my lab, who's right at the other end. She just started snoring really deeply.
I've got 3 dogs right by under my feet. So I found myself about halfway through going, like I really felt that it's a beautiful piece of music as well.
Thanks. So that's the other thing I want your viewers to understand. I'm sure you talk about this, that the energy gets transferred to both ends of the leash. So if she's wagging her tail and this thing is blowing up,
She's like, why did you stop?
So if you're anxious about you leaving because you're afraid about how your dog's going to experience separation anxiety, your dog will feel that. So this music is not only prescriptive towards dogs, it's also prescriptive for people because it really is soothing for both ends of the leash, which is so important when you want to calm your dog. Because we love our dogs, and I know how much anxiety it can cause when we see them suffer.
Who was there watching with their dogs, and how did you enjoy that, and how did you feel when you were listening to it? Let us know in the chat, and what reaction, if any, did you get from your dogs? Janice says, I have been gone all day and just sat down with this. The girls stayed in their beds while I left the room for a minute.
And that sounds like that might be unusual, that they don't usually do that. We should just go home.
Yeah, Janice, is that unusual? Is that something that you weren't expecting?
Gee.
Yeah, let us know. Yeah. So if people want to get hold of your music, they just need to go to myzenpet.com. Is that right?
Yes. And if you want tips on how to use the music for particular anxiety issues, including separation anxiety, go to myzenpet.com/tips, and you'll be sent a link to the streaming as well as a PDF guide on all, how to use it for noise phobias, separation anxiety, excessive barking, crate time, and so forth. So it's a guide on how to use this music prescriptively. I am so pleased to be recording what I'm calling the My Zen Pet music system, which is all the things, not only the music, but all of these things, what to do in what order, how to create a sound-friendly dog environment, because it's not only about music, it's also about sound and how to eliminate the beeps and the electronic things, and every year they get worse and worse, and what we can do to help our dogs and really be aware of that. I'm recording that, and it's going to be exclusively available in my Dog Gone Calm Club. So if you want to join the wait list, because we are opening next week. I haven't opened in like 4 months, and I'm opening new members next week. And that's where you can get the whole system. And if you join the wait list at myzenpet.com/waitlist.
Right, that's awesome. Janice just said, yes, it's very unusual, especially since I was gone. Yeah, there you go.
I've had people message me saying, my dog loves your music, but this is challenging because I come home from work and they don't get as excited as they used to get.
Yeah, and that's like when you're doing the separation anxiety. So, they're so used to having their dogs at their feet, and then they start doing the training, and then suddenly the dog's not hanging out with them so much, even in the house. And they're like, this is really amazing, but it's bittersweet because they're like,
exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
But so you touched on a good point a minute ago. So a lot of dogs that have separation anxiety also have other anxiety.
Right.
So they've got some
particularly sound phobias.
Yeah. Generalized anxiety / they could have sound phobia. So this product you offer, or this training that you offer, takes in a whole gamut of anxiety, doesn't it?
Exactly. And yeah, it's very, very common that, as it's separation anxiety doesn't usually come by itself.
Yeah, true. Cool. Well, unless anybody else has got any other comments, I think we can wrap up. Oh, that music was just beautiful, though.
Oh, I'm so glad you enjoyed it, and your dogs. Because I saw your dog wandering in the back, and now I don't. So I assume they're settled.
He's under my feet.
Yeah,
he's under my feet. Yeah, they're all under there. Yeah.
Fantastic. Good.
Yeah. Thanks so much, Lisa. It's been
thank you, Ness. It's a pleasure meeting your following, and I just love this topic. So thank you for asking such great questions.
Yeah, thank you for what you do. Yeah.
Thank you.
So
Okay.
important. Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
All right. Take care.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.